The Marfa Lights by Kylo Little Wren Hin. If you're from Texas, there's a good chance you've heard about the Marfa Lights, at least at one point in your life. It was most likely from one of your grandparents or one of your relatives who passed through the area and saw them for themselves. If you're not from Texas, or if you haven't heard of them before, allow me to explain exactly what they are. No one actually knows exactly what they are. Picture yourself driving along a desolate, empty road in the middle of the desert. You've been driving for miles, with only a few gas stations and fast food restaurants littered across the landscape. Up ahead, you notice a vast, open space expanding out past your driver's side window. And in the distance, you see these orbs. You can tell they aren't physical sources of light, light bulbs, lanterns, car lights, etc. But rather, they appear almost ghostly in definition. Many people from Southwest Texas and beyond make their way down to the town of Marfa to catch a glimpse of the mysterious phenomenon for themselves. I thought that it would be a neat weekend trip to take myself, as these types of attractions have always been enticing to me. It was that and that I had nothing else to do. I packed my car with a small suitcase, some snacks, and my dog, Kona. I started my playlist on my phone. I checked my mirrors and I hopped on the freeway to make that 6-hour drive to Marfa, Texas. I ended up staying at a hotel in Alpine, Texas, which is a neighboring town close by. The locals there will tell you just exactly how much they hate Marfa. It's a product of a long and intense rivalry that extends from the high school football teams to the UPS drivers. And for what it's worth, I like Alpine better than Marfa. But that's just my personal opinion. After checking in with the front desk at the Holiday Inn Express, I took Kona and my suitcase up to the 3rd floor and I got situated in my room. It was simple but surprisingly quaint. I figured that this would be a nice place to hang out for my 3-day weekend from work. I sat my phone down on a wooden dresser, I turned on the TV, and I ordered a pizza. At this point, I'm just excited to go and see the lights. It's 2 p.m., meaning it won't get dark for another 5 hours or so. And it won't get dark enough for the lights until around 9 p.m. After finishing my lunch, I headed down to the lobby. Kona was on her leash, and I decided to take a stroll along Holland Avenue to kill some time. About half a mile down the road, I find myself in front of what appears to be a small bar. Harry's Tinajas. I observed the outside of the bar, noting the cattle skull fragments and bones perched on top of a ledge outside the front doors. It was a bar so unique and rustic, it truly did invite me in with its appearance alone. Inside, I noticed 2 things right away. First, they don't accept credit cards. Thankfully, I have a few 20s tucked away in my wallet, so that doesn't concern me very much. The second thing I noticed, however, is that the ceiling ledges are decorated with a bunch of license plates. Some from Texas, but mostly from various states around the country. I walk up to the bar, which is empty considering it's a weekday afternoon. And I find a gentleman with a graying beard standing behind the counter. "How's it going, sir? Can I get a bottled Lone Star?" I say. He turns his back to grab the bottle, so I take a seat and sat down a 20 on the counter. "Here you go, son. My name's Harry, by the way. If you need anything, just holler." "Harry, are you the one who owns this place?" I asked him. "Yes, sir, I am," he says. "I'll spare you the details as this conversation lasted about 2 hours and $30. But Harry provided some wonderful stories and insight on the history of the area. It was interesting learning about the dynamics of a small town like Alpine. He told me about the day that a shooting occurred in the town's elementary school, and how panicked the community was that day. He griped about the controversial quarterback situation at the local high school, and how their current starter is only starting because his dad is the coach, and that the backup is significantly better and the whole town knows it. But eventually, we got to discussing the lights in the town next door. "So, you being a local, what do you know about the Marfa Lights?" I asked him. I know as much as anybody else does, he said. I also know that it ain't no atmosphere doing it, or the gases in the air, or whatever they say it is. I also know it ain't traffic driving along 67, like those kids from Dallas think it is. They were here for 4 days and they think they know everything there is to know, he said agitatedly. Do you know of anyone that has gone out to try and find the source of the lights? I asked him. I sure do. A lot of them end up in here, he says with a chuckle. That desert, does something to you. Okay, you got any advice for me then? I want to trek out there and see for myself what it's all about. My advice is to stay at the viewing area on the road. Ain't nothing good can come from poking your head out and about that place. I appreciate that, I said, but I have my mind made up. I gulped down the last of my drink and I leave the rest of my cash on the counter, and I started making my way towards the door. There is one thing, Harry begins to say. The people that have ended up in my bar afterwards, they tell me the same thing. I just never paid it much attention to it 'cause they all seem so crazy. What do they tell you? I asked him. They say, don't look it in the eyes. I tried to rationalize what those people were talking about, wondering if they actually did see something. He said it was multiple people, right? That means they all saw something, possibly the same thing. Anyway, so it's about 7 p.m. now, and I'm gearing up the backpack I brought with me with some water, trail mix, a first aid kit, flashlight, and my 9mm. You never know. I also slipped in a bag of dog food for Kona and her brush. If you have a chow, you know that you can never stop brushing them. I grabbed a bite to eat at Penny's Diner just across the street, and I made my way west towards Marfa. Once I reached the intersection of the viewing area, I pulled over. Do I really want to do this, I thought. I mean, they've been talking about these lights for over a century now. So what makes me think that I can solve this with a simple walk into the desert? I deliberate with myself for a little bit, and I figure I'll just check the viewing area and decide from there. I pull into the parking lot, which is empty aside from one family that is packing their stuff into the SUV to head out. I like the idea of having the viewing area to myself. I park next to a circular adobe structure, which has some of those large, silver binoculars that you have to drop 50 cents into to use. You know, sort of like what you would find at a zoo or any scenic overlook. I step out of the car, Kona following immediately after me, and I look up. The thing about being in the middle of nowhere is that there is minimal light pollution, meaning you can see so many more stars with the naked eye than you could if you live in a large metropolitan area like myself. I can feel my eyes widen just to take in the brilliance of the thousands and thousands of stars and planets that make up the sky above me. The Milky Way, in all its glory, just finds a way to make you feel so minuscule. I continue to scan the night sky, noticing that the stars glimmer and shine even down to the horizon. Have you ever seen anything like this? I asked Kona. Just then, one of the stars appears to move. It slowly glides horizontally above the desert, changing pace erratically. It comes to a stop below the vanishing point of the horizon within the desert. I found them. I found the Marfa Lights. Joined by a handful of other glowing orbs, I take a moment to study them. Sure enough, they're just like ghostly balls of light. They really don't seem to have a source of any kind. And the fact that I just watched one fly across the land really has my imagination going. Is it aliens? Maybe. I actually consider that it may very well be traffic or some sort of atmospheric anomaly that's causing the lights to dance the way they do. But it just doesn't make sense from where I'm standing. I look down at Kona. Shall we? I ask her. She turns her head a bit to the side, looking at me with her black tongue sticking out of her mouth. She shifts her focus out into the desert and stands up, and then looks back at me. She wants to go out there, and so do I. I carry Kona over the wall, carefully setting my foot down on the other side. I set her down once I get myself situated, and I look out into the desert. It's dark. So very dark. I thought I knew darkness when the power went out in my apartment complex one night. This, however, this is different. I don't even feel the moonlight that normally casts a luminescent glow over the earth. As a matter of fact, where is the moon? Where are the stars? I turn around. Where is the viewing area?